Okay, so where we left off was we have a Sankey diagram being generated within Flexsim with a WebKit widget and a custom GUI. So that's where we were. All of this data is coming straight from the HTML. So if we look at our custom GUI, the HTML here, all the way down here we've got this variable called energy data. It's a JavaScript object right here, and it's got two arrays in this object, a nodes array and a links array. So this is the data that is defining this chart. Okay, so you can see each of these colored bars represents one of the nodes in that array. So we've got A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then Flexsim. And you see that same set here, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then Flexsim. And then the links is the value, the source, the target, and the value. So in this case, you've got like from E to F, and it's got a value of 5. So let's see if we can find that in the data. So E and F, these are zero-based arrays, so 0, 1, 2, 3. We're looking for a 4 to 5 source to target with a value of 5. And here it is. So source is 4, target is 5, the value is 5. So that's that link right there. Okay, so the question is, how can we let Flexsim generate this data and then have the chart create all these links and the nodes from data out of Flexsim rather than data that's hard-coded within the HTML page? Alright, so what I've done to get us started down that road is created two global tables, one for nodes and one for links. And I've already pre-populated the data. Okay, now one thing to note, let me show you, on this, so the nodes, let's scroll down to the bottom of our code. I can tile this over here. Alright, so our nodes, we've got row 1 through 8, and here's the array of the A through G plus Flexsim. And then the links, I've got the 8 different links. The values are all the same, 2, 4, 30, but you'll see that the source and the target are different. So they're all incremented by 1. So where this is 0 to 1, this is 1 to 2. I felt like it was important to have consistency between the data tables in Flexsim. And these data tables are, the rows are 1-based. There's no row 0. And so to account for that fact in the global table setting, I decided it was more important for the global tables to be internally consistent. So I've got row 1 through row 8 here, and then the links show with the source and target according to these row numbers. So for instance, from node 1 to node 2, I've got a value of 2. That means from A to B, I've got 2. Now you can see that in the data, from A to B right here, you've got 2. So right now, remember, this data is still just coming from the HTML. But just so that the tables didn't have data that didn't work outside the context of these tables, so the tables were internally consistent, I changed those values. So we've got to remember to account for that when we translate back into the JavaScript objects. Okay, so now the question is, we've got this data here. How are we going to get it into this? Okay. All right, so the first thing let's do is over here in the HTML, I'm just going to comment out all of this data here, and I'm going to just put some special code here. It can be anything. We'll just call it our data. Okay, so this code, it's not really computer code in any regard. It's more, this is just something unique that I'm going to search for and replace. Okay. So now what we need to do is when this GUI opens, right now it'll be broken, but when it opens, what we want to do is we want to search these tables and build that JavaScript data and insert it into the HTML. Okay, so let's go ahead and get the GUI editor up here. Okay, here's our chart. Just here in the overall GUI object, we want to add an on pre-open, so that when you open this model, or sorry, this GUI, there will be some code that will fire. Okay, so here what we need to do is build the JavaScript data from the global tables, then insert that data into the HTML. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll create a string of JavaScript data. We'll initialize it to just be empty. All right, now the HTML node, let's look at this GUI structure here. We've got this HTML4 widget with an HTML node, and there's all the code. And so the code that we need to replace is way down here. Remember this thing? Let's just grab that right now. We'll use that in a moment. For now, we'll just put it right here. But here in the on pre-open, we need to get this code. So let's do it. Tree node HTML code node is equal to the node command HTML4, and then dive into the HTML node, and this is all from C. C is the current GUI object, so C is this object right here. Okay, so using the node command starting from that object, we want to go to a child named HTML4, dive into its object data, and get the HTML node. Okay, so that's the node. And then the actual HTML code is the get string I know get s is the short version. I'm just totally having a brain freeze. Get node. Right, so we'd say get node stir off of HTML code node. So there's our actual HTML. So now what we'll do in the middle here is build a JavaScript string with the right data. So we'll do that in the middle. And then at the end, what we want to do is put that JavaScript data into the HTML code. So we'll do that by saying HTML code is equal to string replace. We want to search for, well, the string that we're going to search is HTML code, and what we're searching for is that. And we're going to replace that special sequence with the JS data that we're going to generate here in a moment. And then the last thing we need to do is set node string on the HTML code node with the new HTML code. Okay, so we'll say put the JavaScript data into the HTML code so that it gets rendered as a Sankey diagram. Alright, so now this middle part. How are we going to go through those tables and build essentially what will look like this kind of string? Let's just take this over to reference it. Put it down here. Okay, so first thing, let's get a couple references to our tables. We'll say nodes is equal to ref table nodes, and links okay, so now we want to say for every node in the global global table, add it to this string. Let's do this too. We'll separate out the node data and the link data so that we'll combine those later. Okay. So we say for int I equals 1, I is less than or equal to the get table rows from nodes, I++. So inside of here we say, essentially we need to build one of these for every row of the table. So we say node data. Now I'm going to put commas before each one of these. We have to escape out any double quotes. Okay, there's some more double quotes there, and then we'll do get table string from nodes. Row is I, column is 1, and then we need our closing double quote and a closing curly brace. Okay. Now after we've done that, we can build the front portion from here over. So we'll say node data. Ooh, something else I forgot is we need to, let me just close this up here. We need to add node data into here. Node data. Okay, so now we'll say node data. Now the way we've got this going here is we're always going to end up with a comma at the front. Maybe we'll just go ahead and put a comma at the back, and that should be a squiggly brace. We'll put a comma at the back. So right here, well, let's close it up. Close up our array. But this guy, we need to pull the last comma off of it in order for it to be syntactically correct JavaScript object notation. So we need to do a string, how do we do it these days? Copy. String, the start, and the length. So that's the string we want. The start I want is 2. I think it's 1 base, to better check. String copy. String copy. String start length. Start value of 1 refers to the first character. Okay. So we want to start at character 2. And we want to go for the string length of the node data -1. Okay. So that builds the node data portion. Let's get rid of that for now. So what we've got now is nodes, colon, and then an array. Yeah, the syntax is JavaScript, so if you're not comfortable with JavaScript, this might sound kind of foreign. This whole exercise, it's really a combination of Flexsim and FlexScript plus HTML technologies like JavaScript. So when you're working with these HTML widgets within Flexsim, you've really got to be comfortable in both worlds. So a special skill set there. Okay, so those lines are going to build the nodes. Now let's say for every link in the global table, add it to the link data string. So for int I is equal to 1, I is less than or equal to get table rows of links, I++. So now we say link data is equal to concat link data, and then string. Done. Okay, and this string has source, source colon, and then target, and then value. Okay, and then within here, we need to print some numbers. Okay, so where do we get the numbers? Let's just build it in right here. We'll say string source is equal to string to num. No, num to string. Sorry. Num to string. We don't need any decimal places with the source. And the number is coming from the get table num of links, row I, column 1. Okay, target, very similar. They're all very similar, so we say target and value. Let's put those values down here. Source. Okay, now this is going to be 2. This is going to be 3. Now the value, you know, right now we're just doing flow items, right? So it's always going to be a whole number. But, you know, if you were doing something else in your table, you might have decimal value there. So your num to string, you might want to say that your number of decimal places is higher than 0. Now the last thing we need to do is account for this data down here, remember, 0 based, whereas these rows are I values or 1 based. So we've got to account for that. If we come in here and just say -1 to the source number and to the target number, it'll take this back to being 0 based. Okay, so even though this was in row 1 of the global table, when we insert it into our JavaScript string like that, is what it'll end up looking like within this string of nodes that we built, it becomes a 0 based array. So then we need to also 0 base the data from the links table. And so taking decrementing the source number and the target number will hopefully do that for us. Okay, so we've built the link data now. Oh, we need a comma somewhere at the end. Okay, and then we'll just do this same sort of thing for links. So link data. Okay. And now finally, what we need to do is this JS data is say put together the other values. So we've got an open bracket and a closing bracket at the end, right? Got an open bracket here, closing bracket there, and then all we've got to do is put in the node data and then a comma and the link data. All right, and then we stick that into the HTML and replace it within that node. And then when it renders the graph, if we've done everything right, we've got an error. Let's see. Oh yeah, so what we can do, I'll show you a little debugging here. We'll see if so the HTML that's in this open GUI should have been changed. Let's just check it out. So I did an explore structure on that open GUI. Now it's way down here. Okay, so you see, instead of having that crazy stuff that we wrote right there, it's been replaced. There just must be a problem with it. Oops, all the way back down. Okay, so there's no opening brace right there. That could be a problem. Let's just make sure there are no other problems. Oh, and there's a closing comma there. Ah, yeah. We did our substring wrong. That's all. Okay, so let's fix that. This guy can close, and we'll go back to our GUIs, pre-open. So instead of 2, we'll just start that at 1. That was the mistake there. Yeah, because we want to start at the beginning. I still had in mind a comma at the front, but that was a mistake. So we'll try it again. There we go. This graph is being generated from Flexsim table data. So just to illustrate that, let's say that instead of going from A to Flexsim, let's try to go from B to Flexsim. So let's change our data there. In the global table links, we'll say instead of going from 1 to 8, we'll go from 2 to 8. There you go. So now we've got 7 tuples going from B to Flexsim. You can see how this graph is now being changed, or it's being created from the data that is in Flexsim global tables. Okay, so that's the end of this part of the series. Our next part will look at having a model that updates those global tables. So stay tuned for part 3 of the Sankey diagram tutorial. Thanks.